I'm Sarah, just a regular woman who's seen her share of life's ups and downs. For 24 long years, I've been the backbone of a family that didn't always see or appreciate my worth. My husband, Richard, has a bit of fame as a TV presenter on a channel that's barely hanging on to its viewers. Then there's my daughter, Emily, who at 18 thinks she's got the world figured out, and my son, Mark, who moved out to start his own life at 23. After spending the best years of my life making sure everyone else was taken care of, I decided it was high time to dust off my old dreams. I used to be pretty good with dogs, even trained as a handler once. So, I got a job at the pet shelter down the road. You'd think I'd announced I was running off to join the circus, the way Richard reacted. Working at a shelter, Sarah? Really? Have you lost your mind? Richard scoffed as he flipped through the channels, not even looking at me. It's just part-time, and I like it. It makes me happy, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady against his disdain. Happy? We're not teenagers, Sarah. Grow up. You spending time with those strays is embarrassing. What will people say? His words were sharp, cutting deeper than he probably knew. I wanted to argue, to scream that I had every right to do something for myself, but I bit my tongue. Fighting with Richard was like talking to a brick wall, only less rewarding. Emily was no better. She walked in, her phone glued to her hand as always, and rolled her eyes when she saw us. Mom, are you still on about that shelter thing? Why can't you do something cool, like start a fashion blog or something? Because dogs are what I love, Em. I thought you'd be happy for me, I said, feeling the sting of her words. It hurt that my own daughter found my passion so unworthy. Dogs? Really, Mom? That's just sad. You need to get with the times. She scoffed, her words dripping with teenage condescension as she flopped down on the couch. I sighed, looking over at Richard for some sort of support, but he was too busy grooming his image in front of the mirror, fussing over a spot on his tie. Richard, do you hear how she talks to me? He barely glanced my way, adjusting his tie. Well, if you acted more like someone her age could respect, maybe she wouldn't talk to you like that. That stung. It really did. The dismissal from both of them was a cold reminder of what my life had become. Ignored and underestimated. But no more. This job at the shelter, it was mine. It was something I loved, something that brought me back to life after years of being whatever they needed. I went to bed that night with a plan. I wasn't going to let them tear me down anymore. I was good with animals, and the shelter needed me. Maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to find myself again after all these years of being lost in the shadows of my family. Richard always had a thing about appearances, his clothes pristine, his hair just so, every aspect of his public persona polished to a sheen. I'd spent the better part of our marriage ensuring his suits were lint-free, the creases sharp enough to cut glass. Image is everything in my line of work, Sarah, you know that, he'd remind me constantly, as if I could forget. Lately, though, something in me had started to slip. I was forgetting things, simple things, like the exact way he liked his coffee or the time of his next broadcast. You're not getting any younger, he'd joke, but the barb was always there, hidden under his chuckle. This particular evening, tension hung over dinner like a storm cloud. Emily, ever the echo of her father, was busy texting under the table, barely touching her food. I served Richard his coffee, my hands shaky from the day's stress. Sarah, where's the cardamom? Didn't I ask for it? Can't you do one thing right? His voice was sharp, each word a needle prick to my already deflating spirit. I thought I added it. Let me fix that, I muttered, fumbling through the spice cabinet while he tapped his foot impatiently. Watching me, Richard let out a heavy sigh. It's like you're not even here anymore. You're just so scattered. The bag of cardamom slipped from my fingers, scattering seeds across the tile. Oh, damn it! I exclaimed, more to myself than to him. Richard rolled his eyes, and Emily let out a snort of laughter from the table. Mom's losing it, Dad. Seriously, she can't even handle spices. She jeered, her voice dripping with disdain. I'm sorry, okay? I'm trying. I said, my voice low, the embarrassment burning my cheeks. Richard's frown deepened. Trying? No, you're failing, Sarah. This isn't just about cardamom or coffee. You're not yourself. You need to see someone, get checked out. I can't have you falling apart on me. His words stung, the implication clear, I was a problem that needed fixing. Emily's laughter echoed in my ears, a cruel soundtrack to my crumbling self-esteem. I started cleaning up, the seeds a tiny mess among bigger issues. Maybe I should see a doctor, I whispered, not sure if I was speaking to Richard or trying to convince myself. Maybe you should, he agreed quickly, a little too quickly, as if the idea pleased him. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I was there, but not really. Plates clinked, forks scraped, and my mind whirled with fears of dementia and doctors. After dinner, I washed dishes, the warm water running over my hands while my thoughts spiraled dark and deep. Richard and Emily retreated to his office upstairs, their voices a murmur through the ceiling. Alone with the suds and my spiraling thoughts, I couldn't shake the feeling of being fundamentally inadequate. Was I really losing my mind? The thought terrified me. Saturday had a way of sneaking up on you, all lazy sunshine and the promise of a little peace. I was cleaning up the kitchen, wiping down counters and humming some tuneless song when it hit me. I'd forgotten Richard's coffee cup in his office upstairs. My hands were still a bit damp as I reached the top of the stairs, my mind on autopilot, planning what to do next after retrieving the dishes. But as I neared his office door, voices trickled out, seeping under the crack like unwelcome water. I paused, recognizing Richard's voice, then Emily's lighter, laughing tone followed. Curiosity pricked me, urging me closer. Do you think your mother suspects anything at all? Richard's voice, usually so commanding on screen, sounded almost giddy. Emily laughed, that high, tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. Mom? She's too busy scrubbing floors and feeding those mangy dogs. She doesn't see past the end of her nose. Richard's voice dropped to a whisper, but his words were clear as crystal. Once I bring Miranda here, things will change. We'll be better off. You like Miranda, don't you? Oh, Dad, I love her. She's amazing, smart, beautiful, everything Mom's not. She actually has a career, makes money. It'll be so cool to have her around. Exactly, my thoughts too. And once your mother is out of the way, we can live as we want. Miranda is eager to move in, start fresh with us. My heart pounded, the room spun, a carousel of betrayal and shock. I leaned against the wall, my legs weak, my breath shallow. This wasn't a conversation, it was a conspiracy. My family wasn't just slipping away from me, they were sprinting. I stumbled back downstairs, my mind racing, terror and disbelief jockeying for position. By the time I reached the living room, my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the sofa, my breaths coming in jagged pulls. I must have looked a sight because when Emily came down later, her brow furrowed slightly, a crack in her usual indifferent armor. Mom, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Her voice, tinged with faux concern, made my stomach churn. I couldn't confront her, not yet. I needed time, a plan. But what? Just tired, honey. Very tired. I managed, my voice a hollow echo of normalcy. Okay, well, if you need something, I guess let me know. She shrugged, her detachment reassembling itself like armor as she turned away, leaving me adrift in the sea of my turmoil. Sunlight was already sneaking through the curtains when I woke up, my mind a tangled mess of dreams and nightmares, all mixing together until I couldn't tell one from the other. For a fleeting moment, I hoped that what I'd overheard last night was just another bad dream. I shuffled into the kitchen, still in my nightgown, my thoughts as disheveled as my hair. Richard and Emily were already there, their morning routine in full swing as if our world hadn't just shifted on its axis. Morning, I mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. The strong aroma did nothing to clear the fog in my brain. Good morning, Mom, Emily said, a little too cheerfully. Richard just nodded, his eyes glued to his phone. But then, their eyes met, and they shared a quick, secretive smile, a small, poisonous thing that didn't reach their eyes. That smile, it was like a slap, waking me up better than the strongest coffee ever could. They didn't know I'd seen it, but it was all the confirmation I needed that last night wasn't a figment of my imagination. I'm heading to the shelter today. Lots to do, I announced, trying to keep my voice steady. They barely acknowledged it, just nods and mumbles, their minds obviously elsewhere. As soon as breakfast was over, I made my way to the little cafe down the street where I'd agreed to meet Mark. The whole walk there, my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the morning bustle around me. Mark was already there when I arrived, his face lighting up in a smile when he saw me. "Mom, are you okay? You look, I don't know, upset?" I forced a smile, but as I sat down, the facade crumbled. "Mark, I need to tell you something important," I started, my voice a shaky whisper. I told him everything, about the overheard conversation, the plans, the chilling disregard they had for me. Mark listened, his face hardening with every word. "Mom, are you sure you heard right? Maybe it was out of context?" I nodded, tears spilling over, despite my best efforts to keep them in check. "No, it was clear. They want me gone, Mark. What am I going to do?" He reached across the table, taking my hands in his. Okay, let's not panic. We'll sort this out. I'll call Dave's dad, he's a private detective. He can help us get to the bottom of this." True to his word, Mark pulled out his phone and dialed right there, explaining the situation in low, urgent tones. Within minutes, he'd arranged for us to meet the detective. We went to the detective's office, a cramped little space filled with files and the faint smell of old coffee. The detective, a grizzled man with sharp eyes, listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. "This is serious, Mrs. Thompson. If what you're saying is true, we need to act quickly but discreetly. I'll need some time to investigate, look into your husband's finances, his movements, check for any evidence of this woman he's involved with." Back home, I slipped back into my role, the doting wife and mother, my heart heavy, my smile forced. Richard and Emily were none the wiser, caught up in their own secretive world. Every look, every whisper between them felt like a knife twisting deeper, but I bore it silently, waiting for the day I could confront them with the truth, armed with more than just my broken heart. When the call came from the detective, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hold the phone steady. "Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk. It's urgent," he said, his voice a low rumble of seriousness that sent shivers down my spine. I agreed to meet him immediately, and Mark, sensing the gravity, decided to come along. We met at a nondescript coffee shop, a place where conversations could disappear into the hum of daily grind. The detective looked graver than the last time we'd seen him, his eyes sharp and assessing as we sat down. "Mrs. Thompson, we've uncovered quite a bit," he began, flipping open a small notebook brimming with notes. "Your husband's psychologist, if we can even call her that without spitting, is more than just a therapist. She's his lover, and they've been seeing each other for over a year." The words stung, each one a lash against the already raw edges of my betrayal. Mark's hand found mine under the table, a lifeline in the storm. "They're planning to get married," the detective continued. "And they don't plan on leaving you with much." How could he do this?" I whispered, my voice barely a thread of sound. "That's not even the worst part," the detective said grimly. "They've been drugging you. The lady friend suggested it, to make you appear unstable. They're using a powerful sedative, adding it to your tea. This would explain any memory lapses or confusion you've experienced recently." A cold dread settled over me, a fog so dense it threatened to choke. My own home, my sanctuary had become a trap. "The plan is to have you declared mentally unfit. They've even roped in some crooked doctors who would testify to your instability for a price," he added, his voice a blend of anger and pity. I felt sick, the coffee shop spinning around me. "My daughter, does she know about this?" "Yes, she's involved." His confirmation was a bullet, straight through whatever shred of hope I had left that Emily was still my little girl. We left the meeting with a plan simmering between us. At home, Richard greeted me with a cup of my favorite tea, his smile too sweet, too venomous. I took the cup with a trembling hand, my heart pounding against my chest like it wanted out. "Here, love, I made it just how you like it," Richard said, watching me with eyes I no longer recognized. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice a mask of normalcy over the scream inside. I waited for him to turn back to his newspaper, then I quietly poured the tea into the plant next to my chair, watching the liquid disappear into the soil. For the next several weeks, I played the part of the forgetful wife perfectly. I'd misplace keys, forget names, stumble over words. Richard and Emily watched with poorly veiled triumph, not knowing that with each act, I was silently sealing their fate. Richard's birthday was looming like a storm on the horizon. He had taken it upon himself to organize a lavish party, claiming it was because he couldn't trust me, the woman who couldn't remember the simplest things. "You're staying at home, Sarah," he had said with a patronizing tone that morning. "It's for the best, you know, with your condition." I nodded, a meek, submissive smile plastered on my face, while rage and resolve warred within me. "Of course, Richard. I wouldn't want to ruin your big day." As soon as the door shut behind Richard and Emily, my act dropped. I was on the phone with Mark within seconds. "It's time," I said, my voice a mix of nerves and determination. "I'm on my way, Mom. We'll show them," he replied, his tone as steely as mine felt. Dressed inconspicuously, we drove to the venue. The restaurant was buzzing with Richard's colleagues, friends, and even his well-groomed mistress, all gathered to celebrate. We slipped in unnoticed, taking cover behind a large pillar, just as Richard grabbed the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this special day," he began, his voice dripping with faux humility. "Sadly, Sarah couldn't make it tonight. She's not been herself lately," he sighed, the crowd murmuring their sympathy. But, on a brighter note, his smile widened. "I've just been offered my own evening show on a major channel. It's a dream come true." The room erupted in applause, people clinking glasses as Richard basked in the adulation. That was our cue. I felt Mark's hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. We moved toward the stage, my heart thumping in my chest like a drum. Just as the applause died down, we stepped into the light. Richard's face went from joyous to ashen in seconds, his eyes wide with shock. Mark didn't hesitate, he strode up and smoothly took the microphone from Richard's hand. "If I could have your attention, please," he announced. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. "I have a special gift for my father and his beloved," Mark continued, his voice calm but loud. A projector whirred to life behind us, and images flooded the screen, photos of Richard and his mistress, their intimacy undeniable. Whispers crescendoed into gasps as video clips rolled, their cozy dinners, their sneaky exits from her apartment. Then the audio played, clear and damning, discussions of drugging me, of bribing doctors, all to steal my place in this house, in this family. Richard and his mistress exchanged desperate looks, trapped by their own deceit. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of shock and anger vibrating through the air. I took the microphone from Mark, my hand steady, despite the turmoil around us. "I am not as ill as my husband hoped," I declared, my voice strong and clear. What you see on this screen, I arranged for this gift, especially for his mistress." The scandal erupted right then and there, the mistress fleeing the room with Richard stumbling after her. As the room buzzed with the aftershock, one of Richard's relatives approached me. "I recorded everything, Sarah. It's all on video. I'll send it to you," he whispered, handing me his business card. After the explosive reveal at Richard's birthday bash, the fallout was immediate and merciless. The video of his betrayal and scheming went viral overnight, replayed on every gossip show and news outlet you could think of. Richard, who had always craved the spotlight, finally got his wish, though not in the way he had hoped. The backlash was swift. His once promising career on television crumbled, the network dropped him like a hot potato, citing moral clauses and public outrage. Meanwhile, I took steps to untangle myself from the man I once vowed to stand by. My lawyer was a godsend, a no-nonsense woman who cut through the legal jargon and helped me file for divorce. The evidence was overwhelming, and the court had no qualms in granting me not only the divorce but also a hefty financial compensation from Richard and his mistress. The fact that they had drugged me made it a criminal matter, too, but my focus was on severing ties, not extending court battles. "Sarah, you've secured lifelong alimony, and the house is yours. They can't touch you financially anymore," my lawyer announced with a satisfied smirk when it was all over. The mistress, Miranda, a once respected psychologist, saw her career disintegrate. Her license was revoked following an investigation into her unethical behavior. The doctors she colluded with faced similar fates, their medical licenses stripped and reputations tarnished. With no career and mounting legal fees, Miranda sold her office and took out loans to fulfill the court's compensation orders. Last I heard, she and Richard were living together in a cramped apartment, struggling to make ends meet. Karma, as they say, can be quite the equalizer. During all this upheaval, my daughter Emily came to me, tears in her eyes, remorse finally breaking through her previously cold demeanor. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was so wrong. Can I stay with you?" Her words stung, reopening wounds that had barely started to heal. "Emily, I love you. You're my daughter, and that will never change. But you chose to side with your father, knowing what he planned for me. I think it's time you learn what real consequences feel like." She moved out the next day, her belongings stuffed into too many bags, her shoulders slumped under the weight of her choices. Last I heard, she was living with Richard and Miranda, the atmosphere there as strained as one would expect. Richard tried to reach out once, a call I let go to voicemail. His message was a mix of self-pity and blame, a cocktail I no longer had the taste for. "Sarah, I hope we can talk. There are things I need to explain," the voice said, trailing off into a sigh. I deleted the message, the final note of his voice swept away with a single tap. After everything that went down, here I am, back in the world of dogs, my first love and passion. I'm not just working at the shelter anymore, I've started offering private dog training courses right here at home. My backyard has transformed into a haven for all things canine, agility equipment, training mats, and more toys than you can shake a stick at. "Mom, this place looks amazing," Mark said on one of his frequent visits. He walked around with a proud smile as he watched me put a rowdy pup through its paces. "Thanks, honey. It feels right, you know? Like I've found my way back to where I was always meant to be," I replied, tossing a ball for an overly enthusiastic golden retriever. The scandal, though a nightmare at the time, strangely did wonders for my business. Clients started pouring in, some admittedly curious about the scandal, but they stayed for the results. "I'll be honest, Sarah, I first heard about you from the news," one of my clients, a friendly woman with a stubborn dachshund, confessed during a session. "But I saw how you handled Bella here, and I knew the news wasn't the real story. You're the real deal." I laughed, giving Bella an affectionate pat as she finally nailed the sit-stay command we'd been working on. "I appreciate that. It's good to know my 15 minutes of fame brought me some genuinely nice clients. It's not all about dogs, though. Mark comes around a lot, helping me with the heavier tasks around the yard, his company a constant reminder of how much good there still is in my life." "Mom, you ever think about how things turned out? You know, after everything?" Mark asked one afternoon as we sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "All the time," I admitted, sipping my tea. "It was tough, really tough. But look at this, I'm happy, Mark. Really happy. I wouldn't change a thing." He nodded, a knowing grin spreading across his face. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You turned a mess into a message." And he's right. I did. I get to spend my days doing what I love, surrounded by wagging tails and wet noses. The peace and contentment that fills my days now is something I used to dream about during those dark times. "Hey, Mom, think you'll ever forgive him?" "Dad, I mean?" Mark asked one evening, the question hanging in the air like smoke. I thought about it, really thought about it. I've moved on, but forgive? Not. And that's okay. I've learned that some things you just have to let be. That's the truth of it. I've found strength I never knew I had, and a resilience that's seen me through the worst of storms. The days are long, filled with barks and laughs, and as I close the gate each evening, I look up at the stars, grateful for the quiet ending to another day filled with life.